All right, so welcome everybody to the CREA Webforms training. We currently have our contract with CREA. So CREA, Canadian Real Estate Association, provides Webforms to us as a service throughout the country. So all across Canada, anybody who's a realtor has access to Webforms, which is actually a product from a company called Lone Wolf, and they call it Transaction Desk. They also have the product AuthentiSign, and we have AuthentiSign provided by Toronto Real Estate Board. It is very confusing, and there's different names for it. So people will refer to it as Transaction Desk, Webforms, AuthentiSign is part of it, but it's all provided by a company called Lone Wolf. And CREA provides login direct through CREA's Webform website, which actually, I'm just going to go to Google. If you literally type in Webforms on Google, you will get webforms.realtorlink.ca, which will take you to this screen. And this screen allows you to click on it and sign in directly to RealtorLink. So if, for example, you don't have your authenticator with you and you did want to type up an offer, you would be able to go to the RealtorLink website here, choose the Toronto Real Estate Board if you're Toronto, Simcoe if you're Simcoe, Hamilton if you're Hamilton, but click on your board, your username and your password. Now, typically your username and password is what you have provided your board with. So Toronto Real Estate Board, when you first signed up, they would have asked you for a username and password. Typically, again, it would be your email address and then the password they gave you. Please keep this username and password handy. There are times where we can't get access to the board. Maybe your authenticator, maybe your phone broke or whatever it is, the way that you're logging in, and you can go into that directly. I have logged into the Toronto Real Estate Board to get access, to show you the access through the board. Of course, if you have Matrix, it would be a different access. You would log into Matrix and you would see Webforms and AuthentiSign. So you could click on Webforms and AuthentiSign right from your authentication through your board, and you'll see your dashboard. Your dashboard would be an agent dashboard. So I'm going to switch over to it'll say member dashboard when you log in. If you're logging in for the first time, you will see a similar screen, but you may not see anything in the transaction section. You may not see anything in the documents, AuthentiSign, or form section as well. You haven't worked with anything yet, so that's okay. And what I would suggest is not to really change anything here. Webforms does allow you to unlock it, so you can move things around, make them bigger, smaller, add certain things. But what we've done is we've given you a template that's most commonly used. And I think for the purpose of this training, as well as moving forward, I think for the most part, just keep it the way it is. Okay, so it's locked up for you, no problem. And get familiar with the system. On the left-hand side, you do have a hamburger icon. I call it a hamburger because it's 3 lines that looks like a hamburger. You click on that, and then you have a list of things on the left-hand side that you can do. Currently, we're on the dashboard. You can go into your transaction sections. Think of transactions as folders. For those who are digital and online a lot, this won't apply to you, but I'd like to maybe paint a picture for those that in the past has used folders, right, in your filing cabinet. Transactions is the folder in which you're going to keep your forms and your signed documents and all the information about that particular either client, purchase, or listing. So think of transactions as a folder. AuthentiSign is obviously your digital signing, and that's been provided for us by the board. You will have access to all your, and this is access to all your signings if you're sending them out. The forms section is where all the forms you're dealing with within your folder or your transaction. You can do a standalone form if you just want to, use one form and not relate it to a specific transaction. But I would suggest at any time you're dealing with a piece of paper, you do relate it to a folder so that it's good for filing purposes. Okay. So I hope you're seeing how this is very similar. If you can mentally picture it as maybe a paper transaction. So you have folders and then you have forms. Now, documents is interesting. Documents are a little different than forms in the sense that documents are things that are typically signed and done, or things you've worked with, right? So you go into a form to fill it out, you send it to AuthentiSign for signature, or you print it off and have somebody sign it, and then either you scan it back in or send it into your documents section. The nice thing is working with AuthentiSign over DocuSign or some of the other digital signings, you will have that automatically put into documents for you. So as a signing's completed, all your signings will go right into documents. You don't have to do anything, which is nice with the system. As it relates to everything below that, you're not going to use it very often, if never. Okay, faxing, even contacts, it's usually within a transaction, so we don't typically go into contacts very often. Your setup, if you are looking to do certain things like clauses and having your own clause sheets and stuff, you can go into setup. So, but today what I want to do is just keep it simple and just work with these 5 icons at the top. Your dashboard, which kind of gives you all the things you're working on in one spot. Okay, so for example, if the last transaction I was working with was Forest Manor, it would come up there. Then the second last, third last, and keep going on. As for forms, any of the last forms I was using, they will come up here as well for quick reference. Documents are in there. The last things I was working with, if I just did a signing, it's going to be the most recent signings here, and of course the most recent full signings here. So these are the documents. This is the actual signing session that you had, right? It could be a bunch of documents in there. So get familiar with that. And currently, what we're going to do today is talk about creating a transaction. Okay, and the transaction is going to be a listing. Last time I was doing this, we did a purchase, but this time I do want to focus on listings. So we'll go into that transaction. When you create a transaction, which I'm going to do right now, I'm going to click on transaction. We're going to name it. And I'm suggesting when you're naming transactions is to start with a listing or a purchase. Okay, so that you do know that if it's 123 Main Street, it's a listing of 123 Main Street. It also helps us at the front desk administration know and be able to pick out, oh yeah, the listing at 123 Main Street or the purchase of 123 Main Street. So in this case, I am actually going to do that, and we're going to use 123 Main Street. I probably have about 15 of them in there because I always use 123 Main Street. But let's do that. Remember I said listing of 123 Main Street. Okay. Now, because we're creating a transaction, there are going to be fields here below that have to do with both a listing end and a purchase end. Okay. In this case, I'm going to go in the template section and choose the listing end of things. So I'm going to really ignore all the purchase stuff, but the purchases are there as well. We even have pre-construction sales as a template. So we're going to look at listing. I'm going to list a residential freehold for sale. Okay, you got lease, you got assignments, you also got condos, assignments, lease, and sales. So I'm going to do a for sale of a residential freehold. So I'll select that. That tells the system what forms and what type of transaction you're going to be doing so that it's intuitive, it knows what you're doing, it's going to give you the right information. Importing the data, you only use the importing data, and it even says optional, as a feature for importing information for purchase mainly. So what you're going to do is if you're going to be doing a purchase of something, you want to pre-fill some of the forms with the information from an MLS listing. So that will allow you to add an MLS listing from any board in Ontario. Okay. And you're going to be added as the listing salesperson in this case, obviously because it's a listing. And yes, I would like to use the wizard. The wizard makes it a lot easier for us. I think for the most part, we had a switch over of this program many years ago, and the wizard was a new feature from the old Webforms, and we had to get used to using it. Most people like, give me the forms and I'll input the information. Well, the wizard's really good because it really does organize yourself, and we're going to use that today. So you hit create, And right now it's pulling in all the forms, all the information. Here we go. And it's going to take us through 5 steps in the wizard. At the top of the screen, you can see it's the listing of 123 Main Street. It's a nice place to always know you're in the right transaction. It also gives you information that we have yet to put in, but we will. Don't worry about the status, okay? All these statuses, just use the open. When forms are submitted to our front desk or deal administrators, they will change statuses based on where they're at in the processing of the transaction. So you don't have to worry about that. There's also a little lock here, okay? As we process transactions, we'll lock it down. That ensures that people do not go back in, change information, duplicate listings, all the things that can really mess up a deal, because this will become the communication hub between yourself and our deal admin. So when you go in after a deal's been submitted, you will see that that's locked down. And it's because certain fields we do not want you to touch. If you were to do want to do anything with that in terms of additional forms or documents, you can still use it. It's not a problem. Just the details need to be done by administration. Okay, which means if you're doing a price change, or no, let's say you've submitted the deal and you're doing an amendment and or buyer change of name or something like that, you would fill out the form, submit the form to us. We will go in and make any of the changes. So no problem there, okay? Just wanted to let you know that sometimes you'll see a red thing that this transaction has been locked down, and that's the reason why. And then you've got some neat little features at the top. One of them is actually an email upload feature. I do like to point that out because some that are very techie like to use it. And what that allows you to do is send an email to this email address, which happens to be specific to this transaction. And any PDF that happens to be in that email that you're sending to that email address will be put in the document section automatically. Kind of a neat feature. I find that we use it from time to time, but for the most part, we'll do that for you, or you'll be scanning your own documents in. So we'll close that up. Then you have your contact card. We don't really use that very often. It just downloads a contact list of, and I'll be honest, I do not use that. So don't worry about it. The 3 dots on the right-hand side is your menu. This is where you're able to do some things like, deleting transactions, team sharing features, which is another video I've done in the past. Feel free to Google that or see our YouTube channel. But team share is setting up teams and sharing your transaction with others in your office. So when you're away, you can have somebody work on your deal for you if you had an admin or another agent within the office looking after your stuff. You can make notes. You can duplicate, never duplicate. They should take that away. As soon as you duplicate a transaction, you're essentially telling us you've got 2 of the same transactions. And in fact, you're really messing things up. So it ends up not working very well. Duplicating transactions can be problematic. Applying templates, creating templates you're not going to be doing. We've done your templates for you. Importing the data, archiving, changing status. These are things that don't worry about. We're not looking after that. On the right-hand side, you've got your wizard. Wizard at the top. Currently we're in the wizard, so you can always get back when you're in transactions by clicking on the wizard. You can go to the dashboard of the transaction, the details, the contacts, the forms, the signings, the documents, the checklists, the tasks, the call logs. These things down here are not very much used, so don't worry about these items. It's the stuff at the top that's used within your transaction. And for the purpose of today, what we're doing is the wizard, and it is going to take us through some of these features in steps. So step 1 being the details. So you can see on the right-hand side, details, 1 of 5, and then we'll show you some of the information. If you start putting in the information below that it will input them in all your forms. So you don't have to do it 20 times, okay? Street number, 123 Main Street. As an example, I'm not sure why it doesn't let me put in street number. That's why. 123 street name, Main Street. Unit number, if it had one. City, let's say it's a Newmarket. That's where I am today. Province is Ontario, if you want to put that in. ON. Postal code L3Y133, for example. Frontage direction, north side of the street. Okay, transaction status, don't worry about, it is open, that's what we're doing. Property type, it is a residential home. As you can see, this is in blue. Anything that we're inputting in blue are considered sort of not mandatory form sections, but it's actually when we submit deals, these are the things that if all the blues are filled in, we have a transaction. So it is kind of mandatory. It doesn't make you do it, but when you do a deal, don't worry, those sections are what our deal have been put in as important information. So it tells us that that's a deal. MLS number, you don't have one yet, so don't worry about that. Property width and depth, if you know it, let's say it's 100. I tend to like to put feet, but just put 100 for now, because actually for the purpose of this, depth, let's say is 200. You have a lot size code down here for feet. So I'm going to put in feet in the lot size code. If you know your assessment roll number from MPAC, you'll put that in there. Legal description, if you have that, lot 24, plan 1, 2, 3, 4. And the comment section, don't worry about for now. Now this is the listing information, list price. If you know the list price already, let's say we're putting this up at an attractive price of 800,000. The present use, residential, and properly inclusions, exclusions, rental items, additional schedules. I know there's B, but I haven't maybe done up the inclusions, exclusions, a rental item, maybe a hot water tank. So the more information you put in, the more fields are filled in for you. Some are not, some don't come over. That's okay. More the information, the better, though. It's always good. Purchase price. If we had an offer, the purchase price comes into place. That's sort of actually ends up being the offer price when we're doing an offer, but eventual the purchase price is what you end up settling on. We don't have that yet. It's a listing. Deposit, we don't know yet. Additional deposit, we're not doing. So remember, it's a listing. Now, if you were to make the mistake, which I've done in the past, I'll just point this out, of hitting save and exit, it will save it and it'll get you out of the wizard. And we don't want to do that. We want to go next. So go up to next at the top and you'll hit next. Now it's asking for the dates within your listing. And really what we have is today's date is the contract date. Let's say you're meeting with them later. If it's not today's date, if it's the one in the, let's say I'm meeting with them tomorrow, we're actually putting on the market tomorrow, then put tomorrow's date, right? In this case, I'll do that. Okay, we know the expiry date is going to be what our contract date is good until. So if we're starting it on the 11th and I'm doing it for 3 months, I'll do the remainder of August to September, October, November. So I will go November the 11th. If we put that date in there, again, it will enter the date in on all your forms. I like doing it this way as the wizard. Again, it saves time. Irrevocable date, acceptance date, additional deposit, even closing date. I mean, you could put a preferred closing date in there if you like to. I'm going to keep that blank for now. Title search date, possession date, we just keep blank. We don't know this information yet. We haven't done a deal. It is on the purchase end of things. We would use that. It's just a listing at this time. So you'll go to the next. Your contacts within the system. It's important. We can now populate the information that's in there. We have a listing brokerage. In fact, I'm a part of 2 different brokerages here. Because that's a mistake, there's 2 listing brokerages. I'm going to delete one. For you, I bet you that's not a problem. I'm associated with the different offices. So I'm going to use the one, I like the one that says brokerage, let's say. So let's just delete this one to make it proper. Now there's only 1 listing brokerage, perfect. It'll get it right. We've got 1 listing salesperson, perfect. Keep there. Now we do have a seller. We know the seller's information. So I'm going to go to add contacts. And I'm going to add, now it's kind of neat that it brings this up because you can just add yourself as a contact. You can add an existing contact. Maybe I've done a purchase for somebody in the past. That contact is already in there. Or I can create a new contact. I can even add a contact from Google. I wouldn't go into all that. I mean, it's a neat little feature, but I would just add a new transaction contact. It's probably even quicker that you just put the person's information in there rather than trying to associate it with a person on your Google account. But anyway, so you have a type. and you have all these different types. These types are associated with the template. So if you put in a mortgage appraiser, mortgage company, seller, so let's give an example as a lawyer, let's say it's the buyer's lawyer or the seller's lawyer, it will start to add those people into the right forms that have been designated as the seller, buyer, lawyer, etc. So you can do that. In fact, if you know the seller's lawyer, you can use that feature. But in this case, we are adding a seller. So put seller, right? Actually, interesting enough, the seller's lawyer, I'm going to show you guys a really neat feature. See if it's on here. Yeah, maybe I'm going to show you that later as a bonus at the end, because actually if you add lawyers in the system, there's a new feature where you can pick the lawyers from the Law Society. So every lawyer is in there, which is kind of nice. Now we can go into the system under contacts, add a lawyer, and automatically, or so you don't have to send emails back and forth to deal admin, just so you know. So that's kind of neat. But today, let's keep it to the seller for now. So first name of the seller is Mike Smith. If there was two sellers, you're going to add two contacts. In this case, Mike Smith selling his home. And if you know Mike's email address, you could put in Mike's email address. That saves time later. If you're sending it over to AuthentiSign for a signature, Mike Smith will now have his email in there as well. That's great. Even his preferred initials, MS, right? Mike Smith. And then you'll just hit save. Now Mike Smith is added as a seller, and all the seller fields. Now we'll see Mike Smith or associate those fields with Mike Smith. It also really helps with AuthentiSign when you do send it. It will template and put all the signatures in the right spots. Okay. Anyone who's using DocuSign right now, and this is not a plug for AuthentiSign, the fact is AuthentiSign is connected with the system and the templates and everything's done for you. It's a lot easier to use than AuthentiSign with the system. It's just the fact. Okay. I happen to have taught DocuSign in the past, love DocuSign, great product, but for the purpose of this and the training, it is associated with your DocuSign or with your AuthentiSign, and it works really smoothly. So your step 3 of 5, you've added the contacts, you're going to hit next. You're now step 4 is your forms. And let's go through the forms and make sure that you have all the forms. We've inputted this as a template forms of every form that we would want you to deal with. Okay. However, there are certain forms in there. I'm going to show you one specifically. Because we have to keep this consistent amongst our full brokerage, we actually have 2 residential data input forms. We have one for Hamilton. We also have one for Toronto. So if you're a Hamilton board, Simcoe board member, I think even, I know I'll say Hamilton on it, but this is for the ITSO system. Even Barrie board members could use probably this form because it's an ITSO form, I believe. And you could probably use it. But today we're doing a Toronto MLS listing. So you could delete this form out of it. I'm just going to show you how it works, because really you just said, oh, I don't need that form, and delete it. Or just don't use it. That's okay too. You can add forms. So let's say you are the seller's cousin, and you want to use a form called Notice of Disposition of Property. It's a seller disclosure that you're a registrant related to the seller. Let's say you needed to add that form. Okay, you would hit add, because we've put in all the forms that would typically be used with a transaction. But there might be some weird situations where it's different than a typical transaction, and you will need to add in certain forms. We put waivers and notice of fulfillments and stuff in here for you. We put FinTrack in here for you. You can see that. We've even put extra schedules to the listing agreement, our connections, our discount program, sign installation, our marketing program called Spotlight that's in there if you want to order that. Privacy information, like we've got great forms in here. They're all great. If you need to do a mortgage verification form on your seller, they're all in there. But if it's not in there, you'll hit add, roll plus, and I'm going to look for that form. I know the name was disposition. There's an acquisition if you're representing a buyer or related to the buyer, or there's a disposition if you're related or to the seller. In this case, I'm related to the seller. And you can see there's tons of forms in our folders. We've got our own forms as well as Ontario forms in French as well, Tenancy Act forms, international referral contract, never used that, but it's in there. COVID forms, CanAfe, things that I have not used. FinTrack, and then you've got the Barrie and District Association Realtor forms as well, because we're part of them and they have a specific forms, as well as look at that, every board in Ontario's forms. So there's Toronto MLS forms. So if we're looking for a form called disposition, you start typing it in, look what comes up. I like the fact that the Ontario forms come up first. So that is the one I'm looking for. Registered disclosure of interest, disposition of property. I always forget the name of it. Form 161 it is. But you also have the same ones duplicated in different boards as well. So Brampton board, Durham board, Toronto board also has those forms. We want the Ontario Real Estate Association forms because that really is a compass on all of Ontario and it keeps it very consistent. So the Ontario form for registered disclosure, I want to add. So just click on there. It's got a little basket so I can continue adding forms. Just the one I need, and I'm going to hit add because I know that I need it and I don't want to forget it later. It gives me an opportunity going through the steps in order to think about the full transaction, get organized and put it all in one spot. The time spent going through 5 steps, I'm going to show you how much easier it is when you're going through your forms later and why it saves so much time. So 4 or 5 is done. You'll hit next. The last thing is documents. Documents are done forms or forms that are ready for you. Okay, they're not really forms, they're essentially a sheet, right? So we can attach documents, and in this case we have attached some additional documents for you to use, right? If there's the seller waiver for the health that when COVID happened, we attached a document, so you had it for you in every transaction. It's great. Even the Schedule B that we have specifically done for you is in there as well. The screening checklist is in there. All the information is in here that we wanted to put or give you as an additional document, but it's all there, right? So we didn't want to add anything else because I don't have anything else to add to this, but I don't know, let's say you wanted to add a survey, you could scan one in, and if it's on your computer, just hit add and then drag it over, or find it on your computer, add the document. If there's anything you want to just have attached sort of to this listing so that we can have access to it. Survey is a great example if you do have that, okay? So you've got 5 of 5, they're all done. We're good to go, okay? We're gonna hit done. And what it's gonna do is compile everything and it's gonna put it on our dashboard. This is now here, we're here, dashboard. We went through the details, went through the contracts, went through the forms and the documents. Okay, so we went through all these things. It took us through that. And now we're at the dashboard. And this is what we see. At the top, it's 123 Main Street. It's added the address in there. We don't have a buyer yet, but we do have a seller. Okay, I'm the agent. Right? It's got a detailed view of all the things we've already put in there, as well as the forms that is associated. We've been through that. We've been through the documents. This is a nice little area. And if you look over on the left-hand side, it's where the house is. And I'm going to show you guys, take a pause right now. And again, reorient yourself with Webforms and this is called Transaction Desk, right? So reorient yourself, because when your computer dies or you've taken a break, you're going to go back in and you're going to say, where is it, right? So I want to show you where it is. If you go to the hamburger icon, I always like to bring up this because I can see where everything's at. If you go to your dashboard, remember from the beginning, I said there are areas, I'm going to show you here, where you can get to the latest things that you worked on. And as you can see, the transaction with all our forms and documents in that folder is right here. So transactions, what listings, 123 Main Street, the latest one is there. The latest form, if I was in there and I happen to have added a registered disclosure, that was the last one I kind of worked with, 123 Main Street. And there are all the Main Street documents that I've actually already been working on because it's associated with that listing that I was just working on. As well, documents, right? Here's all the documents that I've most relevant to what I've been recently working on. So it's really intuitive. It's very smart. It knows where you're at. I have not done anything in Authentisign yet, so there's nothing there for 123 Main Street. But I can go back into my folder, my transaction, and click on Main Street, okay? I can also go into forms if I just wanted to start filling in forms. That's another option, okay? I like working within transactions. So I like to go back over to Main Street. Some people like to go over to forms and just start working with the forms, but sometimes you can make that mistake. When you're working with 2 or 3 different transactions or 20 different transactions, you just may have noticed that you went into the wrong fin track. So I like going into transactions, click on Main Street. Okay, here's our transaction desk. That's where we left off. So again, keep doing that. Keep going and clicking on things like member dashboard, listing 123 Main Street. Do it 4 times. They say if you do something repetitively, like 4 times, you kind of get into that. Routine of and sort of mind mapping where everything's at. Okay. Obviously, if you go straight into transactions, you could do that too. You can click on transactions and it bring up all the transactions. So all the folders, these are all folders. Okay. And you can see I've got a ton that are in there. You have 123 Main Street. There's nothing in this section because we haven't worked with it yet. I haven't handed it in, but it actually starts to see that, if you have worked with things, you can start seeing where the communication between deal admin and you will be. So 70 Forest Manor, for example, here does have a complete status, right? And everything's fully approved. So it's really good for organization in the transaction section, but we're working on 123 Main Street. So let's go back. We'll unpause and go into the forms that we need to sign for the listing. You have a form section. Why not click on go to forms, right? Why not go to the form sections? You can click here as a quick link or on the right-hand side in the form section, right? Either one will take you to the same spot within this transaction. So we're working on this folder and we're going into our form section. These are all the forms, and even gives you a little bit of a preview of what that form looks like, right? So, and you can move it around if you want. Look at that. That's fun. And put it into maybe an order, right, to start working on. I'm going to see if they've put in a feature I've always wanted them to put in. Let's say I wanted all of them and wanted to work on all of them. If I click on that, yeah, it's not there yet. Many years of suggesting that they have a section where I can say, I want to work on 10 forms, click on the forms and start on the first one. It takes you to the next one. It just makes sense. They haven't done that yet. So essentially here, you're just going to go right into the form you want to work with. Okay. They're all there. It's no problem. It's just sometimes I like to be a little more organized and start from the top down and just work on one. And you can do that. Essentially, you just have to kind of decide which one you're going to work on first. I tend to like to put things in order, right? So working with the realtor is the first one I like to work with because it is literally the first thing we're supposed to do with a customer or client, right? You're supposed to go in and disclose your realtor relationship, how realtors work, and get them to sign off on that. Then I'll go into things like the listing agreement, right? The schedule, that's way down there, even if I use it. Then we look at the listing or the MLS data form, listing appointment sheet for a front desk, et cetera, et cetera. We can go down through all the different forms, right? If I'm ordering the marketing for, it's all there, okay? We're going to start at the top. We're going to start with working with a realtor. So literally click on it. And that will bring up the form for you to start filling it in and doing what you want with it. Now, a lot of people these days are using Authentisign. And if you're using Authentisign, I'm going to put a big asterisk here. Like Authentisign to me is a great tool. I know that it's something that everyone's using. I will put an asterisk and say, be careful with sending forms for signatures. There are different ways you can do it. My suggestion is, I'm thinking if you're sending it for signatures because you can't meet them in person, maybe it's COVID or a pandemic situation where you need to do that. Maybe it's for ease of use. You're up north, you want something done quick. Keep in mind your service as a realtor and your due diligence as a realtor still needs to be intact. They still need to see you as someone who provides great service. So where possible, you'll always print it and go have it signed in person. That's the service that's the level of service we want to aspire to at Century 21. We want to make sure that you're face-to-face explaining. People can see and react differently to different situations in person that you can't see over a signing online, right? If somebody's not sure of something, you can see that. So you can go into more detail. Very hard to do that through Authentisign. I'll get off my soapbox and I will go back into this, but I do want to make sure that when you're working with forms, when you're working with Authentisign, at least minimal, jump on a Zoom, Google Meets, get onto a video, and you can go through the form with them. You know, have them share their screen and explain the form. Don't just say sign the working with a real. Read it and sign it. Well, no, we have to explain it. What is a client? What is a customer? In this case, I'm going to suggest we sign a client relationship. So I do everything I can, the best for you, read it over, and then have them sign it. So acknowledged by, these are the sellers. For some reason, working with a realtor is one of the forms they just do not seem to want to bring over the information. I don't know why. We could have that discussion. You're going to put in their name again, Mike Smith. Okay. It's just not one of those forms that they're doing that with. They're the seller's name. Oh, so name a brokerage. It's kind of weird they say sellers and then name a brokerage, but the acknowledgement by Mike Smith, the sellers, we understand that Century 21. Now, again, they know this information, but we have to put it in here. Heritage. Whoops. As you can see, I can't do two things at once. Limited, right? If you put in Century 21 Heritage Group, that's fine. If you put in limited, that's fine too. Even if you went as far as to put in brokerage, that's okay, right? Technically, that's the full name of our company, and we are a brokerage. So you'll put that in there. There will be an initial that will be put in there that you'll need at some point in time, and then the signature of Mike Smith. You can put his name here if you want as well. Again, it's something that they should have in there, but they have not brought the information. So you'll put that in there and say, okay, I'm done with this form. At the top, if it makes you feel comfortable, you can save it here. Hit save the form. I like doing save because I just, in my head, I've saved it. It will save on its own. It has an automatic save feature. So if you make the mistake, you add in the information, and then you go up to transaction forms, move on to the next transaction form, it will save it, okay? It will also allow you to print it. And that's what I would suggest. Print it, have the document there, go have it signed. Depending how you're working with it today, you can even send it off for a, Authentisign, which is up at the top, send to Authentisign. But we're not going to do that. If we are going to make a signing, I'm going to do all the forms and go through it with them remotely. I can do that later. So transaction forms at the top will take you into the next form you want to deal with. Okay, I put a little bit of an order to it, which is nice. The listing agreement's there. Let's say that is the one I want to go into next. I will click on that. So now we're going to be going into the actual listing agreement. The nice thing is this form has all the information I've already entered, right? So this is one of the forms that they bring the information into. There's the brokerage, Century 21 Heritage Group Limited. What it doesn't have here, and again, one of the limitations and suggestions I have for the system, made it a long time ago, is that what is this, what is that, and what is that? And what it is, so I'm telling you, it is the address of Century 21 Heritage Group. So if you're at 11160 Yonge Street, right, and this is where it gets confusing. Do I put in Yonge Street here or here? And I think it is Yonge Street. That's in Richmond Hill. I can never tell what each of these are, right? But I'm guessing, and I think I got this right. One would be, let's say, and the telephone number of the brokerage, right? It didn't have it, and typically I'm going to guess that. Remember when I deleted the brokerage, that address wasn't in there for this one. I'm going to guess that when you do your forms, this has been added for you, so you don't have to remember this. I just think because I'm associated with different things within the system, or maybe I created it by mistake at one point in time and doubled up my brokerage information. I have a feeling they're going to put this information in here for you. Maybe you guys can text me and let me know if that's the case, but I'm pretty sure it is. The seller has been put in under one of the seller fields. Here's the other seller field, right? You can put and, so if Mike Smith and Marie Smith were selling the property, you put two people. I will tell you, if you put more than, because there's more than there's more than two, there's only two fields. And if there's more than two, you will do Mike Smith and Marie Smith and you'll type in and Jim Smith and Terry Smith. And so you can keep doing that It will kind of mess things up a little bit when we get to Authentisign. You have to add the contacts separately, but because right now they're only allowing for 2. And when it goes over to Authentisign, it'll just create 2 contacts, and then you'll have to split it up in Authentisign a little differently. Those of you who have worked with Authentisign and Webforms know this already, that there is some manipulation you have to do when you get more than 2 sellers. Okay. And in this case, there's 2 fields, but for the purpose of filling out a form, you're going to need to put in like 4 people, or 2 on this side and 2 on this side. You know, you'll have to do that. That's one of the questions I get from time to time. In consideration, listed brokerage, real property, 123 Main Street, Newmarket, Ontario, L through Y1B3. Again, if this is blank because you didn't do the wizard, then you're going to have blanks there and no indication of what that actually is. You're going to get fields. You're going to see, what's the small one for? It's for Ontario. What's this last one for? It's for the postal code. And there's no indication of that when you're working with a form. So again, another reason why you use the wizard. Okay. And then you've got the date of the when the contract starts and when the contract ends, because you put that in the wizard. You've got the price, all done for you. Perfect. Commission. So total commissions 5%, 2.5% I'm offering to the cooperating broker. Again, they don't make any indication as what this field is, but you should be able to, you should know this from your training. Sale price, or so what this is, if you're offering, let's say a dollar value, or if you're selling the property yourself, you have 5% or 3.5% if sold by the listing agent specifically, except in a multiple offer scenario, right? So you can put all that in there. That just confused you all. I shouldn't have said that because that is what I used to do. It gives you an opportunity to put ors, right? So 5% or a reduction if I sell it myself, you know, you can use that section for that. Or if it's not a percentage, right? So of the sale price, or you can put 0 and say it's a $10,000 total commission, 5,000 to the cooperating brokerage. See how you can use that form differently, right? A little confusing. See your manager if you have any questions on that one. But in this case, I am offering a 5% total commission with a 2.5% to the cooperating brokerage, not putting anything in the ors. And I'm going to put a holdover period of 90 days. So 90 in there. Okay. And you'll scroll down to the next section. Schedules. Now, there will be a schedule if you decide to reduce a commission. Remember what I said above the ors? We actually created and put in your transaction kit a form for a Schedule B. You can use that Schedule B for the listing if you're reducing your commission, because we've written out that thing I just said about reducing the commission to 3.5% if representing not in a multiple offer scenario. We actually put a Schedule B for that. Okay, so instead of using the or section, you could put in Schedule B and fill that in, and I can show you that. Let's do that, because I think a lot of you are going, oh, that's a great feature. Show that to me. So I'm going to put Schedule B, and I'll show you where that is. So Schedule B, my name's there. I'm going to be signing there. Mike Smith's going to be signing down here under seal. Declaration of insurance. Yep, we're going to put our name there. Again, they left it blank because they thought, well, what if it's not you? Well, it usually is. So put my name. There we are. Acknowledgement down here is already with Mike Smith. So we're good to go. Everything on here is where I want it. Again, I can go to the file, save to make myself feel good. And then you're going to go into the next transaction form. And/or print it off, right? Keep it in your folder if you want to do paper. But you are going to go into the next form you want to fill in. I don't want to forget Schedule B. So let's do that. We have put a schedule to the listing agreement in here, right here. So if you bring down that, it's a schedule, and then it's an open schedule. We filled it in for you. So it's schedule, and it is going to be B. I'm going to accept that one, go into it, and I'm going to show you what I mean by here. Perfect. There it is. Subject to 21 Heritage Group, sellers Mike Smith. They're calling it Schedule A. I can call it Schedule B. Actually, technically, I could have put A in the first one. I always do B's because I think Schedule A is kind of the pre-printed stuff, but it's not. That's wrong. Schedule, it could be A, B, C, D. It doesn't matter. I've said in the last one B, so I'm going to put Schedule B in this one. Brokerage, Central Toronto Heritage Group, sellers Mike Smith, 123 Main Street, Ontario, dated the tomorrow's date. That's what I got to get this signed. Seller acknowledges notwithstanding commission rate as stated in the listing agreement, 5%, in the event that Aaron Richardson procures a successful buyer's offer on this property, the commission will be reduced by. Now, make sure you explain this by, let's say it's 1%. It could be 1.5. So if you're, for example, selling it for a 5% total commission, and you said you would do it 3.5 if you bring your own buyer, that would be a reduction of 1.5%. Okay, make sure they know, still a total of 3.5%, right? Due to fair competition, the seller understands and acknowledges that the above reduction will not apply if the offer is in competition with the buyer's offer from another Century 21 Heritage Group brokerage or any other real estate broker. Will not apply if the competition. So if you're in competition with anyone else, there is a rule, RICO rule, that we must disclose the reduction of the commission. And because it's a reduction of 1.5%, and you're telling that to everybody, it scares people away. And this is what I would tell the seller. The reason why I put this here is because if we do reduce it and it's in competition, people tend to scare them away, because now they have to go back and say, listen, they have an advantage of 1.5%. And then they're going to say, the buyer's going to say, well, how come? Well, because of this. Forget it. I'm going to walk away. This is ridiculous. It's not fair, blah, blah, blah. And it's not explained really a lot of times properly to them. So my suggestion is use obviously Schedule B if you're reducing the commission, and that's why I've shown it to you today. That's a great feature if you've decided to reduce your commission. Now, that sometimes doesn't come up because you're not offering that reduction. Just so you know, this isn't to show you how to reduce your commission from 5 to 3.5. If you actually, it is showing you how. It's not telling you you should. It's just if you do. Okay. So Schedule B, we've done that. It's you can go back up. You can print it. You can save it. You can do what you want, but you'll want to move on to the transaction forms. And let's say now I'm going to go into the MLS data information form. I want to show you the MLS data form. The rest of the forms on here all work the same way, everyone. Like if you're looking to fill in any of these forms or use these forms, they work the same way. So I'm not going to go through every form in here, obviously for the purpose of keeping this a reasonably short. I say reasonably, I've spent some good time on this one, but the MLS data form is a big one. So I'm going to click on that one. And as it's going into the MLS data form, it's taking that information again that we've already put in the system. The assessment roll number is in there. Nice feature. This wasn't available right from the beginning. This is I'm going to call it new feature. Other agents are going to say, yeah, it's there for a while. I don't really list properties anymore. So, you know, I only see that when I do training. You have a drop down now for area. So I'm not sure when they put this in, but I love it. Now we can look at any area. And let's say it was new market. We said new market. Let's look at the ends. Sorry, it's York, isn't it? York region is area. York, there we go. York region is the area. Municipality is Newmarket. And the community within Newmarket, look at it. We can't get it wrong. This is awesome. So Glenway, let's say Main Street's in Glenway. Actually, since it's Main Street, let's keep it. It's in central Newmarket. So 123 Main Street. Now, interesting, it says street name abbreviations here. You will not have a problem. However, it's not technically correct. And what this does, because it's in pink here, it means it's mandatory. So I made a mistake. I put Main and then street all in one, and it's not. It's Main abbreviation street. So we'll make a ST. A change. So now it's in the mandatory field. Anything in pink is mandatory. It has to be filled in. Okay. So I'm only going to show you mandatory fields. Of course, you have the ability to put a lot of irregularities, as well as areas, acres, zoning, map, all that kind of stuff, assessments. So, but everything that's in pink needs to be filled in. So fronting on, it didn't pick up my north. So I'll put north here. Legal description is in there because I told it. Lot frontage is 100, lot depth is 200, and that is feet. It picked up the lot size code. Nice. I'll keep going down. Direction cross main streets. Let's say it was Davis and Main. So I'll put that in there. List price is $800,000. The taxes, I need to know the taxes, $4,567. The tax year, of course, is 2022. they've been assessed, all good to go. Go to MPAC for that. We're not going to put the assessment in. We typically don't. Assessment year, no. Contract commencement as of tomorrow, expiring in 3 months. Possession date, it is asking for what your possession date is. This little star, as you can see, one possession date remarks is mandatory. One of these is mandatory, it's saying. Okay, I like to be like 60 to 90 days. TBA is to be arranged, right? To be negotiated, basically. So I'll put that in there. Holdover days is 90 on the agreement. Seller's name's Mike Smith. Exterior. Now you'll go through and put all the again, pink areas. Let's say it's a attached rope. Let's say I'm going to go detached. I don't know why. I'm just going to go, well, take that off, put detached on. There we go. Style is a 2-story. Exterior, let's say it's aluminum siding. Garage type. Just one, it's attached with 2 spaces. Drive is private. Drive parking spots has also 2 additional spots for a total of 4 spots. Pool, none. Water, municipal. Special designation, unknown. And then you've got all these non-mandatory fields to fill in. You can fill those in. I suggest you go through and do that. Rooms. Again, for the purpose of this, I'm not going to fill this all in. I want you guys, obviously, to get out of here at a good time, not have to watch all this. But you put in rooms, bedrooms, kitchens, washrooms, basement, family room, fireplace, heat type and source, air conditioning. Notice that room details is not mandatory. I always suggest you do it. It could be vacant land though, and it doesn't have any rooms. Make sure you do this, diligently. Make sure you make all your room dimensions, measurements yourself. Don't rely on anything done in a previous listing. Don't copy a previous listing. Do not rely on it. It's cost agents thousands when they go and renegotiate deals because they put in the wrong information and that somebody refuses to take the property or something. It's crazy what can happen. Same with comments. You could leave it blank. It's not mandatory. I'm surprised it's not, but it isn't. So you can put this in there if you have it. A lot of people haven't got this yet because they haven't done the write-up, but that's where you're going to put in your remarks for clients, your extras, and your remarks for brokerages. And then down below, all the mandatory fields. So Central 20 Heritage Group, my name is there. Office phone number, salesperson's phone number. It's even put in my code for Treb. Commission to cooperating brokers, 2.5%, let's say. SPIS, never. You don't. Distribute to DDF. I like it to go everywhere. Personally, I like that. Display address and internet, yes. Contact listing brokers, no. Expired, no. Occupancy, it's owner occupied. Photos, we're going to upload our own. And that's it. So there you go. So we filled all the information in. We can print it or send it over to AuthentiSign. In this case, we are going to go up. I want to make sure it's saved, so I'll hit save. And then again, you can go on to the other forms. The one other form I want to show you guys is when you're done a deal. So transactions done. Actually, you've put all the stuff into a PDF, sent it to our front desk. Front desk actually will go in here and put it in there for you. They'll do all the right information. They'll lock it down and all the rest. You will go over to your sales information sheet because you have to fill in a sales information sheet or we will not process your transaction. We need your information. We need to know what happened with the deal. So that's the agent sales information sheet. The nice thing about the sheet is a lot of agents like, oh, I just did the deal and everything. I got to fill this all in. And they think it's, a bit of a pain or whatever it is. Some of the information's already put in there, right? So it's kind of already somewhat filled in. So we'll put in who did the transaction and fill in all the information. MLS number, you will have that now, right? It will be, you put that in because you have listed it, you've sold it, so it'll be there. The price that you sold it for, when it's supposed to be completed. The reason why we fill this agent information, it is the communication specifically on what happened in a transaction between the agent and our admin. Our admin do not go through paperwork to try and determine what happened. They need to know what happened and you need to tell them what happened. That's why we fill this in. Okay. Yes, the buyer's name is on the other side and sometimes we have it, but it doesn't matter. They literally take this form and create a transaction within their system based on the information that's on here. We need it. So fill this in, do the checklist, what condition, offer dates, and everything, all in this form, and save it. And then you could just let them, actually, a lot of cases, I'm not going to say not to let them know, you should let them know, but because it is being saved as a form within the transaction, the deal admin know to go and check it. And if it's filled in, they go, oh, they've already, oh, great, it's done, right? So please save it or print it and fill it in, and or put it along with your transaction that you've handed into the front desk, etc. But that's the agent sales information sheet that's in there as well. And all the other forms are in there that you're familiar with. Just so you know, and for those of you that may not know, all these forms that we have in here are also available in paper format at our front desks in packages. So you literally can go to the front desk and say, can I have a seller package for a listing? They'll hand all the forms to you. You can go old school and fill them all in yourself, pen to paper, give it to the front desk. Front desk will create a transaction within the system. So you literally are able to do all this work, but not necessarily do all the digital aspect of it. You can still do old school transaction pen to paper and just hand it to us. We'll look after the rest. We will upload it, etc. We will list it on the MLS for you. We will do everything. Just hand us the paperwork. We'll take care of the rest. We're full service that way. Okay, so now we've sort of got everything we wanted within this transaction. So it's all saved, right? Going back over to here, you can always go back in, right? Let's say you go to the dashboard, right? And let's say you do want to send it to Authentisign. You can go into your transaction, go into your forms, and choose what forms you want to send over to Authentisign, have signed. So you go to your form section, say, I want to have this one done, I want to have this one done, and this one done, right? Any of the other ones you want to have done, schedule, right? And you've got a basket here. Literally click on the basket, send to Authentisign, and I should cut and paste our Authentisign training video, because this is where Authentisign takes over, and this is where you'll see how powerful the Authentisign section is. Sign before you send. Oh yeah, that's a good new feature. You could send it and then sign it, or sign it and then send it. That's great. And it teaches you how to do that. Okay, I got it. Now, really, literally, you can go through and you're going to have to, in this case, add participants, etc. Mike Smith. So let's, from your contacts, Mike Smith. There's the seller. Select. I'm surprised I didn't notice that one right here. So now it's telling where to sign. It's putting Mike Smith's information in there, exactly where Mike Smith would be signing throughout. Keep in mind, I'm going right now. I've probably done a little bit more than I wanted to show you, because we're going into Authentisign on how to use it. But you are going to need to, put in the correct area for signatures, etc. Where Mike Smith initial, for example, we just wanted him to be representing. So I deleted one of them. Obviously exclusive or MLS. So you delete ones that they've put in there. Now you've got just the MLS, but it does have them signing in the right sections. Okay. Not going to go too much into Authentisign, but what I'm going to do is go back over to the dashboard, and that's the broker dashboard. Let's just go back, save. So now what that's done is it's saved a signing in Authentisign, because I hit save, and there's my signings within the transaction. So remember, going back, I'm just gonna, if you've lost your spot and you kind of say, where are you now? You can always go back to the broker dashboard, remember? And there's your transaction. You can go back in there, or now it's created an Authentisign in there. So you go back into the Authentisign. So click on a listing on the transaction side, and you can see in here that all your forms that are in there have all been filled in, right? And you've actually created a signing. So in the signing sections, you've done a draft of it. You can go back in and work on that again. But utilize the dashboards as an area that you can see everything.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like our video, please hit the like button, the subscribe, and even the little bell to get notifications, just so you can stay in touch and watch more of these great videos.